Layer styles and options. First of all, I'll drag out again my complete layers palette here and just delete my workspace so you guys have it a bit easier. Okay, so again, on the right hand side, we have our layers palette, and in the middle again, our image. Also, let's start talking now about this layer. It's first of all just a normal pixel layer. I'll quickly type it out for you guys. Pixel layer, there we go. And now on this pixel layer, if I double click onto this layer, I get into the layer styles, also options. So let's do that. Double click on this and right away you'll see a new window pops up. So this is called layer styles. So first of all, in layer styles, you can arrange and you can also add a few more effects here to your certain layer. So again, let's start right away in the top with the blending options. Like I said also in the previous lessons again, that you have a few different techniques to work with your workflow. So you can either choose blending options over here. When heading over to the right hand side, you can work with these blending options, or again, right away on the layer in the layers palette, here you can also work with layer blending options. But more about the blending options here in the next lesson. Let's also double click again to get back into the layer styles. And right away on the left hand side here, you guys can see here are a few more options to work with and a few more styles that you can select in order to enhance this certain layer. Again, on the right hand side, you can refine the certain option, and then also on the right side, you can OK this or cancel this. I do not want to go through every single step now, it will take way too long. You can Google about it or check some of our tutorials out, or free tutorials, but I do want to cover one or two quickly here. Say for instance, if we go to color overlay, so color overlay over here, and you select this color overlay, once it's ticked, you will see that already right away our whole layer is covered with a new color. Again, in the middle, you can now choose first of all a blending option for the certain color style or the layer style effect, something like maybe lighten or difference would maybe make a complete difference on your image. If we go further, divide, saturation, etc. You can also go back to normal, so that's just a normal layer. And you can double tap on here in order to change a color now with the color picker. Say for instance, we're going to go to take a really red color here, hit OK, and switch the blending options again to difference. It might look just like this. So you can get some really cool effects with these layer styles. Also, something quickly by the side, which we've mentioned in the previous lesson. You guys can again see now here, it's a normal pixel layer. It's visible. Also on the right, we see there are some styles active. And down here, the effects are active and the color overlay. More about that towards the end of this lesson. Then again, also let's maybe untick this and we go to pattern overlay. We try the same again over here. You have a few blending options. Maybe let's choose difference again. And over here, a few patterns to choose from. Let's select this. It's very weird. I do not work so much with this in retouching. Mostly for design stuff, I work mostly with the layer styles. Okay, then also gradient overlay. You can also add more effects like you can see. Now let's select the color overlay again, the gradient overlay, and we'll first of all select a new gradient over here. Maybe red and green, and also the blending option to difference once again. And then or maybe we just tweak the opacity down. So as you guys can see, here are a few options to just work and refine this small gradient overlay over here. You can also hit the plus button, which means you will double that effect. The same goes again for color overlay, inner shadow, and stroke. But this is only available in Photoshop CC again. All right, let's actually get out of that again. And obviously you can also save your new styles if you have a certain effect. I'm going to hit OK now. And right away you guys can see that under my effects here, under the pixel layer, if I minimize this, we won't see it at all. And once you open this, you'll see all the effects. And you'll also see the different type of effects that you've applied to the layer. So you can now say color layer or color overlay should be out, not visible. Then immediately your picture changes again. The same goes for maybe the pattern overlay because it doesn't look so nice. Maybe the color overlay again or the gradient overlay. That looks kind of weird and really cool. So let's stick with that. Okay, minimize and you can continue. I want to show you guys another effect here. If I'm going to select the text type tool and just make a big selection over here, More about the tools later in the course. I'll just write type again and maybe make this nice and big. Accept it. Take the move tool, move this a little bit down. And now, first of all, you will see on the right hand side again, we have a type layer. Just for all of you to understand it again, type layer. If I double click on this, it will take me back again into the layer styles and the options. So again, in here, you have now a few more options to work with. So it does not matter if you're working with an adjustment layer, if you're working with a shape layer, if you're working with a smart object, type layer, or even a normal pixel layer. Every single layer can have layer styles. Let's maybe in this situation here with the type layer, go to stroke. And right away, you'll see that around the type layer here, I do have a stroke. Again, in the middle, I can now enhance this a bit more, make this really a lot. I can choose from a position, inside, outside, center, or again, outside again. I can change my blending options, maybe to difference once again. Well, one won't see it now. Hard mix, overlay, opacity, all of that stuff. A lot of options to play around with. Even the color, you can switch this also to red. Okay. Change again, maybe just to 10 pixels and hit OK. So that effect has been directly applied to the type layer. Double tap on it again and we get back into our layer styles. Again, if you have duplicated a lot of different layers, you will always see here at the bottom are 2 arrows to move up and down. But I would say play a bit more with this. This is only a learning curve that you can teach yourself. It's basically going in and just playing hours and hours just with different effects here, like outer glow. What is the drop shadow? So say for instance, we can actually add this quickly. You'll see it on the type layer is a nice drop shadow now behind the text. There are also a ton of tutorials out there teaching you how to work more with layer styles. But honestly, play a little bit around with this, play a little bit with the different effects like blending, emboss, all of this in order to understand what type of effects you can do in here. Most of these are also used for graphic design, not so much for retouching, but for a graphic design part, this is really nice. I'm going to hit OK, and right away again, you guys can see even under the type layer, we have all our effects listed. So you can easily, quickly change between them. Layer blending options, or also referred to as layer blend modes. Again, I'm talking about in our layers palette here, the top part, our different blending options here for the certain layers when you're working in Photoshop. Right away, I want to show you guys another effect here. I'm going to delete this layer and also this one, open it again. And I didn't show this in the previous lesson. I'm going to hit right click on this now. And first of all, go to clear layer styles. So over here, again, another workflow technique in Photoshop. You can copy layer styles or clear layer styles again. I will clear this for now and we're back to our normal standard pixel layer and our image. Now, for the next step, I want to duplicate this and show you guys how to work with the blending options. For that, you can either have a few workflow techniques again. Drag this image onto the new layer icon, which is down here again. Once you drop it, it will take and make a duplicate of this. Let's delete this. We can go over to the palette menu here, select that, and also duplicate it over here. So again, another duplication technique. I'm going to delete this again. And last step now, keyboard shortcut, Command J for the Windows people, please press Control. So Command J and it will duplicate. Again, Photoshop gives one a lot of different techniques how to speed up your workflow. All right, so first of all, we made a duplicate of this. It also says pixel layer copy. I'm just gonna keep it actually to that. And first of all, show you what happens now if you go over to the blending options. So normal will always stay with normal and you will only see what is on top. Then also we can go to dissolve. Nothing so much of an effect here. Let's go to darken. Not so much of an effect here. Multiply, bit of an effect here. As you guys can see, now it multiplies. So obviously all of these have different functions and it will always look different. Color burn might look like this. Hard light might look like this. Saturation might look like this, because it's obviously then flat. Color, not giving so much an effect. And also hue and saturation, not giving so much an effect. Subtract, that will just darken it. Difference will also not make a difference. So yeah, as you guys can see, here are a few options to work with when it comes to blending options. But now, you don't need to always duplicate a layer and then apply this. You can apply this with many different type of layers. Say for instance, if I'm going to create a new layer here, fill this up with a new red color, more about the techniques and tools in the future. For now, I just want you to understand what happens when you work with the blending options. Say for instance, if I have a complete new layer here, a red layer, and now I only want to apply this in a subtle way. I can first of all play here just with my opacity. So either adding effect like that, taking down the opacity, let the bottom part again from the patty shine through, or again, I can tweak this up all the way and just work with my blending options. So now I'll switch this to darken, or multiply, or again, lighten, or again, hue and saturation maybe, to get a really weird effect. Difference, and so on, we can also achieve the same effect. Like you guys saw now again, also this looks pretty much like our beginning again. Let's actually switch this off quickly, go to the pixel layer, double click, go into the layer styles, go all the way to color overlay. It is also red, and we have difference over here, okay. And once we switch this off, you will see it's exactly the same effect as we have if we switch these two on. So again, different work techniques in Photoshop. You can either do it via layer styles or again with blending options. You're doing the same technique, but just in a different way. In here, you're working with blending options. Let's switch this on and actually delete layer 1 again. Or what I want to show you guys again is also, maybe let's stick with this. I'm just going to double tap into this. Go to the layer styles, go all the way to color overlay, and this time I'm going to choose a 50% gray, something like a medium gray over here. Hit OK, hit OK again, but this time I'm not choosing a difference as a blending option. This time I'm going to go with soft light or overlay. So once I put this to overlay, okay, I need to have obviously the right color for this. Let's select the right color. It's not working so much with Command D, get out of this and right click here the layer styles. Again, now you guys can see that I have just a normal gray layer. And now if I switch this all the way to soft light, it will also be applied, but you can't really see it because it's a 50% gray, and with soft light, you will not see it. There's a certain dodge and burn technique that we use in retouching. Then this comes in really, really handy. So yeah, blending options are all about changing different layers that are on top of each other to a different effect. Like again, with the previous one, our pixel layer copy. If we change this to pinup light, it will change. The same goes to every other layer. So blending options, not too hard to understand. Again, play a little bit around with this, try different effects, and you'll see in tutorials, people use these blending options almost all the time. Photoshop layer masks. So confusing. Not a lot of people understand it right, but it's actually so simple. Photoshop layer masks. Let me explain this a bit. Masks are pixel areas that are hidden or shown from a certain layer. So I'm going to say it again. Masks are pixel areas that are hidden or shown from a certain layer. Let me show it to you guys over here in our layers palette. First of all, you will see here at the bottom we have the pixel layer, just a normal layer and a normal image. And on top of that, we also have this pixel layer, but it has a mask attached. So firstly, you can select your image, or you can also select the mask. If I'm going to switch this on now, you'll see there's a certain effect. I'm going to go and disable this layer quickly so you guys can actually see the complete image. Again, like before from the lessons, we still have our effects active here. And again, the complete layer has this effect. Now though, I accepted a mask, and right away, everything that is white will still be shown and everything that is black will be hidden. I'm going to say this again. Everything on a mask that is white will be shown. Everything that is black will be hidden. This can also sometimes be opposite. If I'm going to invert this now, you'll see the black is on the top. So this means now black again is hiding, white at the bottom, everything is visible. Okay, so let's actually now go and delete this layer and show you guys quickly from scratch how we do this. Delete the layer mask. All right, so first of all, if you're working with the layer mask, you need to first of all select the layer that you want to add a mask to, because currently it is not active. If I select the pixel layer over here, I can now go down here to the mask icon and select the mask. Now currently we are on a white mask. Everything is shown. If we invert this, everything is black, and that means everything is hidden from the mask. But let's stick with white for now. I'm also going to show you in a moment how to create the black masks. So first of all, you have a white mask now, and maybe for instance you go to the brush and you want to select the brush here, you want to paint out just the goggles here and the glasses, and you're painting and brushing, but nothing is happening. This is so confusing. Why is it not happening? Maybe I need to select this, and you're painting. Oh my god, okay, no. You are now actually painting on your original image. You wanted to paint on the mask and hide. Alright, so let's go just a step back and recap again on this. You're not supposed to paint on this layer. This layer over here is basically your original image. You're supposed to paint on the mask. Second of all, you are now painting with a white foreground color. That's why nothing is happening. Your mask is already white. You need to change your foreground colors. So change them to black, and if you paint now, everything that is black will disappear and will be hidden, and everything that is white will show. Like so. Have a look at the mask here. Everything that is black will disappear, and everything that is underneath will show. So for instance, the mask is here just to hide everything from this layer, not from this layer. It's just supposed to hide from this layer. So whatever is black is hiding, whatever is white is showing. Let's go another step back and do this once again. So with a white foreground color, you won't see anything. Now again, I'm painting on my original image. Select the mask, black foreground color, and I can now, for instance, just hide the glasses here. Okay, let's paint a little bit on. Everything is hidden now, so we have the original black glasses here from the bottom layer. Plus we have the effect on the lady just from the top layer. Again, everything that is white will be shown, everything that's black is hidden, and everything that is underneath this mask here will be visible here on the mask. But now, if we invert this again, you'll see the opposite happening. Everything that is black will be hidden, so the complete lady is hidden, and only her glasses with this effect, obviously it's white, will be shown. So don't get confused. White always shows, black always hides. So you have to pay attention to what your mask is currently set to, and then you're good to go. Great, I'm also going to hit right click and also delete this layer and quickly show you guys another technique here. So first of all, you can either use certain tools in order to create masks or right away create a mask. I don't want you to pay too much attention now to the tool that I'm using. I just want to show you the effect. Say for instance, if you have a selection here, you can now right away select your layer that you want. So it's the pixel layer, and right away head over here and select the mask. So right away Photoshop creates a selection around the area that you have selected. So this is now white, it's shown. The rest is black, it's hidden. You want to create the opposite, you can just invert this with Command I. For all the Windows users, also Control I. So again, black hides, white shows. Let's delete this once again and show you guys another effect. For this, I just need to switch this off, move this down, and maybe have now our original picture on the top. So pixel layer over here, the original is on top, and the edited one is at the bottom. So everything that I'm going to hide now from this layer will reveal the bottom one. So let's select the pixel layer, and now we're going to go in the quick selection mode. So over on your tool panel box, if we go over here, and you can hover over this also to read quick mask mode. So I'm going to select that. I'm now currently in the quick mask mode. If I double click on this, it will also quickly show me the quick mask options, and over here is all the masked areas will be shown in a 50% red color. So let me explain this. I'm going to accept this now and enter the mode, and now right away paint with this. Excuse, I'm still out of this. I'll select the brush tool and select the mask mode, and now everything that is red will be a selection. Okay, more about this also soon in the selection tool. But for now, I just want to understand or give you an idea what it does with masks. So say for instance, all of this area here, I've masked this, and now I can go over to the mask tool and create a selection out of this. Sorry, first of all, I need to go out of the mask tool. Again, out of this, we have created a selection. Now you can go over to the mask tool, and right away we have a mask again on our layer. So there's a few differences. You get a mask on a layer and you get a mask for selections. So don't get confused between both of them. But more about the mask mode. Selections here once we get to the selection tool. Okay, so let's delete this once more. We're going to create a new selection out of this. Basically move this one down. Take our pixel layer, create a mask on this again, and maybe just quickly with the selection tool going to also create a selection here, right click. I'm going to fill this up with black. I don't want you to pay too much attention to what the effect I'm doing right now. Just again to the mask. So when you're on the mask now, you can also hit right click and first of all disable this layer so you can see your whole picture here. Disable and you get to see the complete effect that's only happening here in the front. Once you select it again, it will activate the mask. So select it and the mask is activated. Otherwise you'll see a big X here if it's deselected. Select it again and it's active. You can hit right click once again and over here have a few more options. Disable the layer, delete the layer, apply another layer, add a mask to the selection, subtract or intersect, or even refine, or go back into more mask options again. Or if you want to now, you can also duplicate this. You can just hold Alt on the keyboard and move this down. So you're basically copying now just the mask to the next picture. So right away you can see that both of these pictures here have the same effect with the mask and everything is hidden. So nothing is hid here at the bottom. We do not have a background layer. So this means obviously everything is hidden now that is black. If we invert this again with Command I, you will see that obviously everything that is white from the top layer here is shown, and from the black layer here, only this part is visible again. But we don't really need another mask here. That would just be nonsense. So let's disable and delete this again. Okay. So you kind of get the effect of this. Also future down the line, we can have another more effects, basically meaning if you hold Alt between the layers, a little arrow appears. Hold Alt on the keyboard, go between the layers and a little arrow appears. And this means now that only this layer is clipped to this layer. But more about that in the adjustment layers. Okay, let's also unclip this again. And for now, just stick with the normal layer masks. For our third step here, I want to start talking about adjustment layers. So first of all, I want to just go over in here and delete our mask. So let's delete that. And as well, I want to clear out all our effects, what we've learned in the previous tutorials. So I'm going to go down here and clear the layer styles. So we're back to just a normal image. All right, so what I want to do now is basically call up my rest of my workspace. So that will be under properties and also adjustments. Let's move this over here. We still have our adjustments over here and properties. So let's actually take layer. We're going to move that back into our layers palette and clip our whole workspace to the right side. Great. So again, on our first pixel layer here that we've just created, we're going to create an adjustment layer. Right on top here, we have layers. Like I said before, we have an adjustment panel. We can also select here maybe a curves levels adjustment layer or just normal levels. Let's go with curves adjustment layers for now. So basically I apply now an adjustment layer to this, but there has no effect being attached now to this adjustment layer. So this means now I'm going to drag out the property tab here, make it a bit bigger, and first of all work a little bit in the adjustment layer. So for that, we have a curves adjustment layer over here, and I can now tweak down all the dark areas, and for this, all the light areas, push them up in order to give this whole image a little bit of an effect. So right away, we can see I'm brightening this a little bit and giving this a bit more contrast and pop. So now I can move this back in here. Okay, that's all that I need for my properties and for my adjustment. But right away, you guys can see that this layer here has a new adjustment. So basically it means an adjustment layer. It has been adjusted and therefore my whole end result looks different. But we haven't applied this directly to this layer. It's a separate layer. So like you can see, here's the before and after, before and after. Now I can continue with my photoshopping process. I might go back to create another adjustment layer. This time I want to take down the saturation, the color. So I'll head over to adjustment tab, select hue and saturation. Let's drag out the properties again so it's easier for you to understand. This layer has not been altered yet, only the layer underneath. So hue and saturation over here in our properties tab. Say for instance in the master tones, we're taking down all the saturation. So take it down. And right away, you'll see that this layer has a new effect, whereas our picture, our main layer, which is this at the bottom here, has been affected now with just this hue and saturation and this curves adjustment layer. So if I'll switch off now the hue and saturation again, you'll see we get back to this effect that we had with curves. So adjustment layers are basically layers that help you to adjust certain techniques and create certain effects add them on top of your stack of your patty here with all of your images, and right away you always get different effects. So through adjustment layers, you can also have them kind of like tools working on your image and creating really creative stuff or enhancing your images a little bit more. Say something like this now. For instance, this layer only does this effect to my image. This adjustment layer only gives me the contrast, and I don't like both of them, so I can just switch them off easily. Let's move properties back in. Don't worry so much now at the moment about all the little features here from all the different adjustments that you get from the adjustment tab. For now, it's just important to understand what is an adjustment layer. So basically, it's a layer, again, that adds a certain effect right on top of your image. So say, for instance, these two here only affect this layer now, but they are also affecting this layer. It's just because this layer is covering all of this layer, you don't see it. But if I switch this off, it just stays the same here. Let's maybe quickly double tap on here, go into the layer styles, what we've learned already, and we're going to say color overlay. This time we choose a red color, okay, like we said, and choose difference blending option. Currently nothing is happening here. That is because we still have the pixel layer on top with these two. And remember, it covers everything here. So I'm going to hit OK, turn all of this off, and right away you see we have the old effect again because we've applied some effects through the layer styles. Now if I select the new layer on top, again it's a normal layer, but we've applied adjustment layers. So again, the curves adjustment layer here will give it a bit contrast, and the hue and saturation will make it a Hulk or very weird. So again, we have that on top. But now, if I go to this pixel layer, turn it off, these two adjustment layers also take effect onto this layer because this one is hidden now. So there's a certain small technique that one can also use. One switches back on this current layer, has its two effects, and now you hold Alt, go between the layers until the little arrow appears again, and this layer, the adjustment layer here is with the arrow, only affects this layer now. And you can repeat this step again with another adjustment layer if you hover between the layers with the little arrow selected. So both of these layers now, the adjustment layers, have little arrows, and both of them are only affecting this layer. If I switch this off, have a look, we are not going to be left with a green Hulk. We'll be left with our styles over here. So let's turn this off, and right away you'll see everything is grayed out. So these two layers only affect this layer now. And this you can do with many different type of layers and stacks. What I mostly do is take all of these layers here, like I showed you guys again when I introduced the layers, and put this in a group. So again, I will go down here and select the group icon, and this here is maybe my new effect. So again, just to understand, adjustment layers are here to adjust certain layers, but they are also adjusting everything that is underneath if they are not clipped to a certain layer. So again, here we have the effect like so, and again back to this effect. Now, right away while we're in here, we can also apply a mask to only this image. So let's select the mask over here and say, for instance, the green Hulk, we want to have this color here only on her skin. And we can now go back in, accept it, and now paint with a black color. Remember, again, black hides, white shows. So black color with B with the brush, and we are just painting on here. Okay, and we need to create the opposite, obviously, if we want to have the green at the bottom. I'm just doing it very roughly to show you guys an example. Like so, obviously one would be more precise than when working with this, but don't pay too much attention to the tool now. Again, see the mask, it's white, so showing all, and black is hiding. Now we're going to inverse this. Again, everything that is white shows and everything that is black hides, even though that you have adjustment layers on top. So again, the whole effect takes part in this group, but if you have a mask, it also can bleed all the way through to the bottom layer. So it's like a burger and like a patty again. Whatever is at the bottom will be shown, and then on top, the next stuff comes on top. Everything that's on top will be obviously visible more than the bottom part. Let's also go over here and just select again our mask, right click, delete the mask. And another technique that I want to show you guys now is also the effect group. We can minimize this again here with the group, as you've seen now already. So again, from this effect, I can also create a mask right away on this. So on the group, I'll just select the mask. So this group now has a mask attached. And again, white shows everything. So I can, with Command I, invert everything. So it's now not showing at all. And now again, with white foreground color, paint back in with the brush on the mask, only the areas that I want from my green little Hulk. And over here, as you guys get the idea. Now we are showing that. So again, masks also on groups, but only adjustment layers are creating this. We can also now then again say here, delete layer mask. We can take both of these layers out again and also delete our effect layer. Okay, I need to move this out too. So right away, we again have our adjustment layers. We're back to the first start. We clip these then again. And as you guys can also see, one more thing that I want to mention here is in the adjustment layers, they also have a mask attached. So say for instance, this adjustment layer here only gives me a lot of contrast. And the second one changes the color very differently because it's a hue and saturation adjustment layer. And I don't really like the green on her skin. Then I can easily go onto here, take again the brush, black foreground color please, in order to hide again and paint on this mask. And right away on here, I can now brush in the skin. But again, nothing happens. This is because again, your foreground colors have to switch. So black foreground color, and now I can then again hide. So again, you guys can see that I'm hiding everything from this certain adjustment layer. Not even creating a mask or a group with mask. You can do it right away on this original layer here. Again, I'll do this a bit rougher and a bit bigger, quicker. So again, with black, I hide it. And with white, I want to reveal this a little bit again. So brushing in here, the orange here. So you can create some really amazing, different type of pictures with adjustment layers. Okay, so that's basically all about the adjustment layers. Spend a bit more time when you work with adjustment layers. And all of these adjustments over here are also obviously available from the top here, from new layer adjustment layers here. So again, you can also work the effects down here. Say for instance, black and white. You have a new black and white adjustment layer here. Remember, this affects now everything, even this layer. If you switch everything on and also go between the layers, hold Alt, the arrow appears and only this black and white here is affected. If you double click on here, it will go back to the Properties tab, and in the Properties tab, you can now work again with your color effects and also enhance that black and white look a little bit. Yeah, that's all about the adjustment layers. Smart objects in Photoshop. Not too complicated, but you need to understand how they work. First of all, I want to just delete everything from our previous lesson here and even clear out our layer styles so we can start from scratch. Again, we have our pixel layer here. I'm going to make a duplicate from this, move it over to our new layer icon, drop it, and right away rename this to Smart Object. It's not a smart object yet. We first need to convert this. So right away now, it's still a pixel layer. I'm going to hit right click on this and go over here to convert to Smart Object. Select Smart Object, and now right away we have a pixel layer and a Smart Object. Let's also select the icon over here so you can see it's just a Smart Object. Okay, so what is a Smart Object? Well, it will allow you to make changes to an image without overwriting the original image data. I'll say that again. It allows you to make changes to an image without overwriting the original image data. Let me also show that in practice. If we're going to go to a normal pixel layer, I'll just quickly make another, again, a new layer. I'll just rename this to background. So that is our start of our image and our first layer. Maybe it isn't even locked. Okay, let's go to pixel layer, copy. We're going to rename that properly. And now we have pixel layer, a normal pixel layer. I want to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and give this like a 30% blurriness. Before I do that, let's actually just switch off the Smart Object so we can also see everything. Blur, Gaussian blur, and we're right away going to give this like a 30-21 blurriness. Okay, so right away, our normal pixel layer has been already adjusted. So the original image data is now being worked on. So now if I keep on photoshopping, say adjustments, I'll give this a bit of a color. I go back and add a bit of curves and be creative and maybe work on for an hour or half an hour. And then later decide, well, maybe the whole blurriness didn't look so nice. I don't like that anymore. So let's just delete that. So if you don't have the background layer, your normal layer will just be gone and your whole effect will be gone. So again, the original image data has been worked on. You can't fall back in the history panel so far, so you can't get back to this state where you worked here. If you press undo, it will only affect the last adjustment curves layer. So what to do? Maybe I should just start from scratch. So you've wasted time and you're frustrated. Whereas with a normal pixel layer now, converted to a smart object, you can now work a bit more precise and score a bit more time. So basically, selecting the smart object, going back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, I'll give this the same blurriness. I continue with my Photoshop process. I maybe give this contrast. I maybe give this another color. I decide to add some more curves to this. So again, I'm Photoshopping on for a few hours. But now I noticed, well, it looks very weird and alien vibe. So I want to go back and change this. I don't need to worry about, again, history, Command Z, any of that. I can simply go back to the layer that I've created, the smart object layer, open it here on the side, and right away also see here my smart filters right away underneath it. So first of all, I can blend this off completely if I don't like it at all, or if I want to enhance that filter again, I can just double click onto the smart filter here, the Gaussian blur, and take the blurriness all the way down. Up to 1% maybe, hit OK, and I'm happy, I save time, and I can go back to the top and start with my Photoshop process again. So a super easy way how to not break down the original image data instead of just replacing it and overwriting it. Then also one downside of this, I'll just delete all of these layers here so you guys can see it. Let's get out of the full screen mode. Right away down here in our canvas, you'll see we have now 24.2 megabytes for this complete file. If I'll delete this, have a look at this number, it goes down. Now it goes to 12.1. So this means as more as I add new layers here and convert them to smart object, the bigger my megabytes get for my file size. Let's delete this again. 12 megabytes, I'll call it back up, and it's back to 24. So again, the more smart objects you create, the bigger your file gets, your Photoshop file. So be precise when you use this. Maybe only use this when you're working with filters and techniques and also certain effects. So that is not all about smart objects. You can also double click on here and also add layer styles as well to this. Say something like color overlay, hit OK, and right away you see the effects here and also your smart filters. So everything is underlined underneath each other, almost like a Photoshop group again. So always be sure when using your smart objects. So before we go over now to our next Photoshop chapter and talk more about the tools in depth, I want to quickly touch base again just on our workspace here and talk a little bit more about some work panels. We've discussed layers now briefly and you know exactly what's happening in layers, but we haven't talked so much about all the others. They are not so important right now for a beginner to understand everything of this. Layers is the most important, adjustment with properties and navigator and your history plus the character and paragraph box. So let's also quickly talk about this. Say for instance now I have my smart object over here. I make a duplicate of this. After that I go to adjustments. I'll create a new adjustment layer. Let's actually take properties out here. I'll take a new adjustment onto that. I go back to adjustments. I add a little bit of color. Okay, and we continue photoshopping for quite a long while. We create a new few groups. Then we maybe create a group. Then you continue photoshopping again with levels. And you're trying to create a really unique and different type of image. Okay, and at some stage you are not so happy and you want to go a few steps back. Then the history panel comes in really handy because the history panel here is made up from all the steps from start to finish. So here's our smart Gaussian blur effect for the smart filters. Then we had new canvases. So you are now able to jump back in the history here from your Photoshop process. So the history is also your friend. Just remember there's only a limited number that you can jump back, I think like 50 or up to 100 steps. Then it's not possible anymore. So smart objects also come in handy then with this, like I mentioned in the previous lesson. Again, here you can also jump around and go to the certain steps. You'll see here on the right hand side with our layer palette, it always changes and we fall back a few more steps. Great, so history is also one of your friends. Adjustments, like I said earlier, is also one of your friends. You can either work from here to have a quicker and more speeded up workflow, or again, you can go up to layer and do no adjustments over here. You can also use it from down here. That's totally up to you again. For me, adjustments is also a friend here. Navigator, if you're not familiar yet with Z, the keyboard shortcut for zoom or in and out, and if this confuses you, you can always use the navigator over here to slide in and out. Then overall, we still have channels. Let's also go back to channels here, again next to the layers palette. There we have our RGB colors. So first of all, you see all the different tones in our RGB colors. Again, the blues, we see the greens, we can turn off the blues over here, and red. This is a bit advanced. You might work with this in 1 or 2 years if you're more into photoshopping. Paths also, again, you can see here from our existing path that we had on the masks. We also talked about this previously in the course here. Again, over here, you have the working path that we've created. But more about that once we get to the pen tool as well and shapes. But path is also your friend. So again, layers, I normally have adjustments together with navigator and the properties. And then also here at the top, let's just make this nice. We also have history. Again, I mentioned this earlier in my whole setup from the workspace. Again, history is for me active and right in the front. Character box to work again with my text, the paragraph the same. And info, we haven't covered info yet. Info, if I hover over here something, I can always see the values. Have a look here on the right hand side. If I hover with the mouse somewhere, I always have right away the right color values for anything. This might also come in handy in the future when you're more advanced with Photoshop. So again, for me important, history right up the front, adjustments with properties, and also my layers down here with channels. So yeah, just a small quick lesson again talking about the most important panels and what you can have for the beginning as well when creating your own workspace. In this chapter, I'll cover everything about Photoshop tools. I'll briefly explain every tool into detail, especially the ones that you need to know as a beginner and some advanced ones as well. I will also try to keep all the lessons apart, so all the Photoshop tools apart, so that you can come back in the future and only have a look at that certain lesson that you are still interested in. All right, so let's get right away into the tools section here. On the left-hand side, you guys still remember in the previous lesson, we talked about the toolbar and at the top, the option bar. If we go to edit here, toolbar, you can right away edit again your toolbar, subtract and add some of the tools that you don't need or that you found on other tutorials or other instructors. Then you can add these tools to your own toolbar or again stick with the one that I have currently. It's good for beginners. I'm going to hit done, move this to the side, clip it right away and start just talking about another point here. Whenever you select a tool on the left hand side, have a look, the option bar always changes. I'm not talking about this white menu line. I'm talking about this little line over here. If I select the marking tool, it right away changes. If I select the lasso tool, it changes. So why do we need this? This little line, the menu option here, is basically there to help you to refine the tool or tweak the tool or find a certain different element from the certain tool. So you will always work with these and also with the tools. Say for instance, if I'm going to select the text tool here, right away you see, here at the top are all my fonts, here are all the styles, as well the size, color, and where do I want to write. Again, a few options to work just with this tool. Sometimes you can also right click onto the tool, especially if it has this little arrow, and you will see there are a few more tool options in here under that tool. Say for instance, like the text tool, first up is horizontal type, and then vertical type. So with everything that has a little icon here, a little arrow, you'll see it has eyedropper, color sample, and red eye. Also with the crop, slice tool, and slice select tool. Okay, so let's start now with the first one, which is the move tool. It will basically just move around your image. It will not move around your canvas. That is again the hand tool. More about that later. For now, it's just important to understand the move tool. It will only move around your image in your canvas. That goes for every single layer. If you move it around and you've placed it somewhere, you can also use the cursors on your keyboard in order to move left and right, up and down, or wherever to space this into the right position. So again, very essential to know a little bit of these keyboard shortcuts. You can use cursors. Plus also now, if you want to zoom in, maybe you don't know when exactly you're back to the line, you can press Z on the keyboard, have a look, it changes right away into the zoom tool. Now I can zoom in. If you're not familiar with this and struggle, don't forget there's still the navigator. Alright, you're zooming in. Now you see this gap over here, we want to fill it up. Instead of going to my move tool, I'll press V on the keyboard in order to speed up my workflow. Now I'm already in the move tool and I can just with my cursors move this canvas again back to the line and clip it in. Press Z on the keyboard, zoom out again, hold spacebar on the keyboard and move my canvas. So more about those other tools later, but for now I just want you to understand that keyboard shortcuts are really essential and they will speed up your Photoshop workflow quite a lot. So try to learn the keyboard shortcuts right away from the beginning. So this was all about the move tool already. At the top I will not explain too much here about the options. This will come in the future state. For now you only need to know more about the move tool. In this lesson, we're going to talk about just the next tool, which is the marking tool. It's right under the move tool. So up next here, if we right click on here, we'll see there's a rectangular marking tool and an elliptical marking tool. Remember, if we go back to edit, toolbar, there are a few more, single row and single column. But these I have never worked with. That's why they are not in my toolbox here, in my toolbar. Anyways, let's get back to this. I'm going to select the rectangular marking tool. And now, first of all, going to create a selection. But before I do that on my main image, I always create a new layer here. So in case I mess up, I can just delete this and start again. So let's also click here into the image. I'm going to drag and click. And while I'm clicking and dragging, you can see that this goes into any side. If I hold Shift, it's equally expanding. So there's already one shortcut, equally expanding if you hold Shift. Now let's create a big selection. Right, so we've created a selection now. And now you can work on with that selection. You can either fill it, you can refine it, you can do whatever you want to and create blocks out of it. At the top of this marking tool, you can also see here are a few more options in the menu or in the option bar. Again, if we go to the top here, first of all, it's just the normal selection, so new selection. Then again, add to selection. Then again, subtract from selection, or again, intersect. So let me show that quickly. Here's add to. Let's actually go to subtract from selection. So now you can see also a little arrow here or a little cross has a minus. This means if I drag another selection over this, it will cut out that little piece from the selection. So maybe for instance, we want to cut out here the glasses. Then we have also cutting that out. And then you can also go on with intersect and create something very weird and just have a very weird selection out of this. I don't tend to work so much with this. Over here is also a feathering mode, which will feather the edges. So either you have hard edges like we have now with zero feathering, or you can feather them. I'll show that in a little bit. Then also over here under style, we have normal, which we are currently working with, but we can also choose fixed ratio or fixed size. This means if you go to fixed ratio, you can now with width and height enter a certain number, hit enter, and right away you have exactly that size for your selection. I normally work with normal. Great, so what I'll do now is just go back to the marking tool, to the normal option, and inside of the selection, I'll hit right click, and now a whole drop down menu appears. So now again, a new Photoshop trick. You can either work with keyboard shortcuts, or again in here, hit right click and have a few more options with working with selections. So meaning you can now deselect, you can select inverse, you can feather again, you can refine the edge, you can save selections, you can make work paths out of these. You can layer via copy, layer via cut, new layer, all of this. I don't work so much with these three options, more with free transform, transform selection, fill, stroke, and again, gauge and blur. These are all extras, not so important right now. For you, maybe it's fill, deselect, select inverse, feather, save selections, and make work path. Let's, for instance, now go to fill, and we want to fill this up now with a color. So over here under contents, we have also another drop-down menu. We can select color, and this time the color picker will come up. We're going to select the red color here, say OK. For blending options, we want to stick with normal and 100% opacity. Hit OK, and right away on top of this new layer, we have a new selection here. Now I want to get out of this selection. So simply hit Command D, and for Windows users, Control D. So this was the keyboard shortcut again, but you can also hit right click inside of the selection and just go over to deselect. But working with keyboard is just quicker again. So right away you guys can see that this edge is very hard. So that's what you're up to, then this is perfect. But if you want to feather this a little bit, you should use a different technique. Let's delete this layer and create a new layer again. I'll go back here to the rectangular marking tool. I'll make a big selection and I'm ready to quick. Again, Command D, we have to remove again. We have to first in the top bar here, add 100 or 50 for feathering mode. Now Photoshop knows we want to feather our selection. So let's create a big new selection here and drop it, and right away you can see it's rounded off. So this means it's now feathered. I can now again hit right click inside of the selection, say under here fill it up again with color, press Command D to get out of the selection, or right click, deselect, and right away you guys can see that we have now a very soft feathered edge. So again, with the selection tool you can create a few different techniques with feathering. Let's delete this once again, open again a new layer, take again the rectangular marking tool and just create another rectangular here. Okay, it's still feathered. Let's go a step back. First 0, feathering, and create a new selection. Great. So we have a selection now here, and I want to once again click right click. And again, to get into options here. So first of all, now we've selected just this area. But what if we wanted to select the outside? Then we can easily hit right click in here and say select inverse. Now this area is not selected, but everything else is selected. So you can easily work now only in this area. You can also use this again on masks, on some brushes, again with layers. So wherever you need a certain selection, you can try and work here also with the marking tool. Now let's also go a step back. So we only have the inside selected. I'm going to hit right click again. Feathering, I showed you that before. Refine edge comes later in the advanced stages of Photoshop. For a beginner, not so important right now. Save selections and make work path. Let's head over to save selection. So say for instance, I'm just going to go out of the selection with Command D. Say for instance, you have created 2 round selections here, elliptical marking tool, and you have now created some perfect cutouts of the glasses here, and you want to save those for the future state, so that you don't need to go back in and create again selections and spend time creating them carefully. So you can now simply, inside of the selection, hit right click, go to save selection, a new window will pop up. It will ask under which document. Yes, under this document please. Channel, you can stick with new, and now you can type in here glasses. Once you are good, under new channel just hit OK. It will be saved directly. So now I can continue with my Photoshop process. I maybe get out of the selection, I continue with a few adjustment layers and do a few other things. And then later I may be needed for a mask. Then it's very easy. You can just simply go back to the selection and inside of the canvas here, hit right click and find the option of load selection. Select load selection, go all the way down again to the channels and find glasses over here. Select glasses, OK. And that was my previous version. Let's do that again. Load selection and also glasses here. Okay. And right away you have your selections back again. Obviously these were just quick selections. So normally when you have refined selections or you cut out a person or you try to be more precise with Photoshop, again with selections, this is a great way how to save and load selections. Let's also head back here, right click again and say make a work path. Later when we're working with paths and also masks with pen tool, you might need a work path. So over here is an option how to work or make a work path out of this. Tolerance for now, the 2.0 is okay. I'm going to hit OK and right away you'll see here are paths. Once we get to the pen tool stage, this might be a bit easier for you to fall back onto this video and understand what I did here. Okay, zooming out a little bit again and then literally select the pen tool and escape out of this path. But more about that in the pen tool. Okay, let's go back to the marking tool, create one more selection over here, hit right click, and now again, free transform or transform selection. That's what I still want to mention. Let's actually make this a bit better. I'm going to zoom in a bit closer, take the rectangular or actually the elliptical marking tool, make a selection around here, move the selection again, and hit right click inside of the selection and go to transform selection. So now right away you see we have some anchor points around here and you can now transform the selection until it fits perfectly onto the black glasses here. You can also hold Command on the keyboard and select an anchor point. This will now bring you into a different tool, but doesn't really matter. You can now move the anchor points. And now you can move the selection a little bit until it fits here to the glasses. You can spend hours doing it like this when you're not familiar with the lasso tool, or again, when not familiar with how to work with the pen tool. So again, that's a good state for a beginner, moving the selections like so, accept it, and right now you have a perfect selection around here. Again, now right click, and you can put this right away to save selections. So whenever you keep on photoshopping, you can work further with this. Now remember again, you can also use the selections on masks and on different effects, or even if you have a brush right now selected, say with a red foreground color on a new layer, you can easily brush around in your paint. All right, let's go a step back. You can easily brush around in your canvas. Wherever you're brushing, nothing is happening. It will only be visible here in your selection. So whatever you're doing to Photoshop right now, to this layer, it will only be visible inside of the selection. Unless again, you have the outside selected with select inverse. So now when you're pressing B for the brush and you are brushing, you will brush over everything, just not the round selection here in the center. So again, these are a quick introduction into selections. You will use them most probably quite a lot in your Photoshop career. So have a look also, again, in every tutorial, I mostly use selections. Okay, so let's head over now to the next tool, which is the lasso tool. Okay, so let's get over now to the lasso tool, which is also up next here in our tool panel. Also, I've exchanged again our artwork here, so basically that we have something fresh to work on. And guys, have a look in your pro tutorial. There should be a folder with all of my working files, so you can practice at home and follow along just with the tutorial. Okay, so let's get right away here to the lasso tool. Right away on the toolbar, you'll see we have two options once I hit right click. So first of all, the lasso tool, and again, the magnetic lasso tool. But these are not the only ones. Let's go to edit, toolbar, and right away you'll see over here we still have polygon lasso tool. I do not work so much with the polygon lasso tool. If you want to, you can also try it out. It's even simpler than both of these. It's basically just creating straight lines. But more about that now in the lesson. Okay, I'm going to zoom in with Z a little bit. Okay, so we just up and close with this. So first of all, what is the lasso tool? It's basically just a tool that creates a little bit of a line, and this line is later converted into a selection. So say for instance, if I have it selected now, and on the current layer, I'm just going with the mouse around the glasses here, and I'm free-handed going around. So basically meaning I'm moving with the mouse all the way, keep on clicked, and try to just complete. So right away it gives me a selection. So you can select anything with this really quickly or also carefully. You can do it like this, so like really quickly make a selection. If you press Command D again, you get out of the selection. You can also now free-handedly do this carefully and around. I normally don't use this tool. I only use this tool when I try to create really quick selections or just bundle up something really quickly. Then I use this freehand lasso tool. Normally what I do is actually use the pen tool for creating selections. So this tool is not ideal for creating selections. But if you're a complete new person to Photoshop and also new to working and creating selections and you're not familiar with the pen tool, then the magnetic lasso tool comes in handy really good. The magnetic lasso tool is also basically creates a line, and from this line again, it will create a selection. But the magnetic lasso tool is a bit different. It decides between contrast. So over here we have a lot of white and over here a lot of black. So this means this edge over here is nice and contrasty. So the magnetic lasso tool clips really nicely to these certain areas. So say for instance, if I'm going to go now with the mouse and move along these lines, and I'm not even too close along the line, as you guys can see here, this line slowly tries to snap to the contrasty area. So I can do this all the way around. I can even be a bit quicker. And I'm doing this obviously a bit roughly now. And drop it, and right away it will create a selection again once we click on the last anchor point there. Let's do this once again. You guys can see it has now a perfect round. It's not really perfect, but it's good enough to create a really quick cutout. Let's press Command D to get out of this selection. Again, Windows people, Control D. Okay, and I'm going to do this again, just a bit rougher. Click, and now you just go with the mouse. You don't even need to click. You can just drag all the way, and see if I go this way, it's going to clip somewhere here, and then it's always trying to clip to the contrastiest area. And again, if I don't click again, then it will just continue. So I need to click again on the first anchor point. So now we have a selection. Also with this tool, you can always hit right click and pretty much do the same like the marking tool. Again, deselect, select inverse, you can feather that, you can refine the edge, save the selections, make work paths out of this, copy and cut, new layers and transform obviously here, and some fill and stroke. So again, a few options to work with this. I'm going to press Command D again and show you guys how it looks here. So again, it's trying to go really nice along the line. See, the contrast is not so good over here, so it doesn't really clip there at the bottom. Let's zoom in and I'll show this a bit closer. You see here is a lot of reflection, so it doesn't clip so nicely here to the top edge. It's always looking for the most contrasty area. So this will work really nice over here. I'm just going to get out of this again. Press L on the keyboard, get back into the lasso tool, and really quickly go around this. Okay, how did I do this also, by the way? I hit spacebar while I'm in the tool, and this means now I can move around. This is the normal hand tool. I will also discuss the hand tool later in the course, but for now, if you hold spacebar, you can always move around. Right away, it gets back here to the lasso tool, the magnetic one, and I can easily just really quickly go around the glasses and click on the first anchor point again, and right away we have a selection again. So this tool comes in really handy if you are new to the pen tool, if you are new to making selections in Photoshop. I would suggest you work a little bit more with the lasso tool. If you're familiar with this and if you're getting better with the pen tool, I would not work with the lasso tool anymore, rather going over to the pen tool, just because your selections are way better. Say something like this over here. See, there's a little spill over there. I'll most probably find some more again. Here's also a bit of spill. So yeah, the pen tool is definitely the answer, but for a beginner, the lasso tool is a friend. In this following lesson, we're going to tackle the quick selection tool and also magic wand, which you can find here on the left hand side in the tool panel again. Quick selection tool and magic wand. Let's start out with the quick selection tool. So first of all, in our application bar here at the top, again, you can see just the normal mode, the add mode or subtract mode for the certain tool. Again, over here also you can change your brush size because this is actually a brush and you're just working with a quick selection. You can change the size over here, hardness and spacing. I'll show you a little shortcut from this right now. So what you can also do is press Ctrl and Alt together on the keyboard. So keep on holding both buttons and now with your mouse move left and right, and right away you'll see you are changing the diameter of the brush. So super quickly you can change it here without going back and forth up here at the top. Again, move left and right. Now you can also move up and down with the mouse. So basically this means you are now changing the hardness of the brush. So have a look at the edge, it feathers more and more. The same goes for the brush tool as well, but more about that in the course later. And I'm also working with the Vacom Intuos 5 Pro tablet, so this means I'm working with my pen right now and doing this whole process. This is another step that I would recommend once you get more advanced with Photoshop. For now, it's just important to work with the mouse and understand the tools. Alright, so what I'll do now is have a very hard hardness here, so 100%, and my diameter, I will most probably make that a bit smaller. Alright, so what does that whole system actually do, the whole quick selection tool? Basically, you can select certain areas that have the same color or same values, basically the same tonalities, shadows or highlights again. So I can move over here and you'll see everything that is yellow, this tool picks up really quickly. And also if you have contrasty area, like here, obviously the model stands out quite a lot from the background. So everything that is yellow will be selected. Everything that is not yellow and not so, basically the contrasty edge will not be selected. So right away you have a selection now. So say for instance here on our background layer, we'll first of all just unlock this and also go over to our mask. We talked about this earlier. Select the mask and right away you see we have masked out the complete person. Obviously the edge is not so nice yet. As you can see here, the edge is not good at all. You can obviously always go a step back and do the opposite of this. We've just selected this. So basically again, select the quick selection tool, and while you're inside of the selection, you can click right click again and you're back to all these options again from this select until to stroke. All these the same that we had with lasso tool and magic wand. So right away, I will say select inverse. And now right away we have selected the model instead of the yellow. And now if I go back to the mask, you'll see we have cut out the model really nicely. Again, the edges aren't too nice around this. For that, there's an advanced technique. If one goes over here to the mask and hits right click now and goes to refine mask, you'll be brought into another option in Photoshop where you can now refine this edge. But for this, I have a really good tutorial, a free tutorial which you can watch in order to understand a little bit more of how to work with this. And it will be shown here in this video as well. So if you want to have a look on our website, there's a free tutorial. You can also download it with the working files in order to practice more of refining mask, because this is a bit advanced already. I'm going to hit OK, and right away you'll see through this process now Photoshop has helped me to cut out my complete model really quickly. But more about that in the free tutorial. Let's go a step back again and just explain the tool a bit more. So right away you guys get to see what I did here. I also just pressed Command D in order to get out of the selection again. Let's get back to the quick selection tool. I'll select it. And first of all, now I want to select the model. So basically it's a bit difficult for this tool now to select everything because it doesn't know all the colors and the tonalities. Whereas here with the yellow, it's a bit easier. So say for instance, I start here at the bottom and I run through and I'm going a bit more. And now slowly, oops, I took a bit of yellow in and I continue and do this, but damn, I didn't want to have the yellow here. So should I start again? No, you can literally just hold Alt on the keyboard, which right away switches here in the top application bar to the subtract mode. Have a look, if I press Alt, it goes into the subtract. And now you can easily go over this again and brush out all the yellow parts that you don't want. And you can do this with any image, depends on how far and how good you are with the pool. Okay, and dragging out. So right away you can subtract again from this. So that's simple, very basic, the quick selection tool. I normally use it just to cut out people and to create certain selections where it gets a bit difficult with a lot of small, fine details. All right, that's all. I'm going to press Command D. So understanding this tool, it does take a bit of practice until you're good with this. But as you can see, also you can just click once and right away it will pick up all the contrasty areas over here against this contrasty area. Great tool to work with. Let's also head to the Magic Wand tool. Magic Wand tool, pretty much the same again at the top application bar. You can see it changes almost to the same like we have with the elliptic marking tool. And it does almost the same, but this time it's just very rough. It just selects the tonalities and the certain color tones. So say for instance, if we go over here, Magic Wand, and I select or click now into my image, everything that is yellow will be selected. Okay, see the tonalities? Here it goes a bit darker, here a bit lighter. So it struggles to pick up this. Everything that is in the same tonality like this will be selected. Again, if I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard now, it right away jumps into the add mode here. So add to selection. So I can now easily select some more areas. So hold Shift and just click. Click once more, click once more. So you're picking up more and more color tones and also going depth more with selections. See closer over here, closer over there. And it's also a great tool when working with a lot of different selection types. Again, super easy to work with. I'm going to get out of the selection again, press Command D. Say for instance the glasses over here. Let's see how good it picks that up. Magic Wand again, and it's basically just a click system. So you click once, yep, not too happy yet, hold Shift, click more, and click more, and click more. Now you also have created a selection. The same goes over again to the other side. Click once, and it picks up all these areas, the areas down here. And you can see this tool does not always work so great. It takes a bit of effort to go back and forth with it and try it a few times. And down here, and you can still see here if we zoom in, all these little areas here have not been picked. So this is not my favorite tool. I do work sometimes with it when I need to do something really quickly and to create something sloppy. But if it needs to be precise, again, rather the pen tool. But again, for a beginner, this is a great tool to getting started and to creating quick selections in your images. The following lesson is all about the clone stamp tool and the healing brush tool. Let's also move over to the left hand side. Over here you guys can see the clone stamp tool and the healing brush tool. Both are really amazing. Das will ich jetzt gerne in echt sagen. Both are really amazing tools and should always be in your toolbar. Both tools have the same properties but work differently. Both copy pixels from a certain area and paste them again in a new area. But like I said, they have different properties. The clone stamp tool copies pixels which include all tonalities and textures, meaning color ranges, shadows, and highlights. This tool does more of a copy-paste work. Whereas with the healing brush tool, it only copies textures and bleeds them into a new area. This way it looks more smooth and real and not so much like a copy-paste effect. Let me actually explain and show you guys this as well. So first of all, if I'll select now the clone stamp tool and right away zoom in a little bit closer. Again, remember with the clone stamp tool, you can also use again Control and Alt together on the keyboard in order to move left and right, change the diameter, and again the hardness. This goes for every brush tool that you have, or clone or healing brush tool. Okay, I'm going to make now my hardness something around 80%. As well on the top, we'll cover that in a moment. I just want to show you guys first of all the effect here. Let's zoom a little bit over. Okay, press Z on the keyboard, I'll zoom in and want to remove now, say for instance, this little pimple over here. So if I'm going to work with the clone stamp tool, basically holding Alt now to sample and source an area from here. So this is our source area, the yellow. We hold Alt and click once. That means it's now copying just the yellow. As you guys can see, so it copies everything, the whole tonalities. Again, if I'm going to go over here to the pimple and just brush over here, it will right away copy paste this whole area. Instead of using here the healing brush tool, this will work a little bit different. Again, I'm also going to make my brush a bit bigger and change the hardness to 80%. So it's pretty much the same. Now I'm going to hold Alt over here, select the area and just brush over here. And have a look, it's not copying everything, it's blending in smoothly, again, an area from here. Over here it's out of focus and smooth, the texture, so it's only copying this texture over here. Different, again, if we source with the clone stamp tool, you see this copies everything. So this also applies now when you say, for instance, want to remove these pimples over here. And I would rather suggest working again with the healing brush tool. So select the healing brush tool, make your brush a bit smaller. You can also feather it completely to 0 hardness. That's what I mostly do. Hold Alt to sample, and I always try to source very close by. So say for instance, this is the area that I want to fix, then I will source from here. So click once via holding Alt, and I'll literally move over here and just carefully brush that over. And again, once more, and carefully brush that over. And right away, it looks better. Let's also show you guys another effect here. I actually want to go 1 or 2 steps back. Okay, this select will zoom out first of all. And I want to show you guys also one more very important thing. If we're going to move over back to our toolbar here on the right and left side, again, and select the clone stamp tool, obviously our application bar changes, so you guys are not new to this anymore now. First of all, again, we have the shape size, what we also do with Control Alt on the keyboard. We have a whole preset menu just for the certain brush. More about this in the brush tool. This applies also obviously to this. Then the clone source, again, I've never played with this before. I normally stick to the normal standard Photoshop settings. They always worked for me. Then as well, some blending options here in the top. I've never worked with the blending options here. It's to change the blending option of the tool directly. For me, a bit difficult and confusing. I normally stick with the layers and just work over here. Then as well, the opacity, the flow. Again, you have a few jitters over here with airbrush. This is one over here, airbrush, aligned. I've never really worked with these tools ever. I just work with the standard system and that works for me. But one thing that's very important here is the sample. Current layer, current below, or all layers. Let me explain this a bit better. I'm going to double click on here, just unlock our background layer. Press Command J on the keyboard in order to duplicate. You can also obviously drag down the layer. We've learned this already. And now I'm just going to rename all to 1, 2, and 3. So say for instance, I'm going to work now on layer 3. And I have current layer selected. The same goes also for the healing brush tool. Please have a look. Healing brush tool, if we select this, the application bar changes, but we still have the sample area the same. Let's move back to clone stamp. And again, you can see here current layer. So the same system goes for healing brush tool. If I work on the current layer now, and I work here and copy something and try to clone stamp something away, it's currently just working on layer 3. But if I now switch over to current and below, it will now copy areas from layer 3 and layer 2 and affect that onto your top layer. So just be sure about that. You are now sampling and copying from layer 3 and layer 2. And if you have all layers selected, obviously it will then copy from all 3 layers. So sometimes this is switched on and one works with this tool and it's just so confusing because you copy and paste areas and you're healing and brushing, but it doesn't look right and it's not what you wanted. It's maybe because you have selected the wrong option here. So I normally stick to current layer. So remember again, current layer will now be the layer that you currently selected. And if you have all layers, it will be all the layers. All right, just that off the bat. Let's delete this again and get once back again to the clone stamp tool and show you a bit of an example what we can do with this. Say for instance, if we zoom in and say for instance over here, we have a bit of a reflection in the glasses and we want to remove this little spot over here. Let me create a quick new layer here and just put a ring around this so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. This area over here. So I want to remove this area, right? Then I will select my layer that I want to work on. So that's layer number 1. I'll press S on the keyboard in order to get to the clone stamp tool and make my brush a bit smaller, again with Control Alt. I'm also working with the Vacoo Continuous 5 Pro tablet, so for me it's easy to change because I have a wheel here and change things quicker. There's also a bit about this later in the course. But for now, you can hold Control Alt. Again, make this a bit smaller. I'm going to change the hardness to 0 and now hold Alt in order to source again and sample an area. So basically close by, I'm sourcing. So sourcing from this area and now brushing over. But remember, you are copy pasting. So this area over here is a bit lighter than over here. So you can already see the difference. If I copy again and brush over here, it's copying the textures, the tonalities and everything. So it doesn't look good at all. So the copy pasting does not work so nicely over here. Let's go to the history and just change. For that, I would rather use again the healing brush tool. So select the healing brush tool, make it a bit smaller, and again hold Alt on the keyboard, sample an area close by, and now have a look, we're only sampling the texture, and now it looks perfect. The same goes for over here. We'll say something in the eye. You can now slowly start cleaning up all the little dust spots. Again, see how often I press Alt. So I'm always sourcing very close by. Again, click and source. Click, source, and paste. Kind of a thing. Click by, close by, and I just brush. Click by, close, and brush. So again, the healing brush tool is way better. But sometimes you have areas like this one over here. So if I'm going to go back to the healing brush tool, select Alt, and just brush over here, see it smudges a little bit and it breaks the whole pixels. And that's also what I don't want. So then I would rather work again just with the clone stamp tool. Select the clone stamp tool, zoom in really closely, and again sample an area close by. I'm also trying to make my brush a bit smaller. Source the area very close by because you're obviously now copying tonalities, textures, and everything. Sample and slowly brush over here. Okay, sample again from the other side and slowly brush back. And if we zoom out now, we see there's no smudges and it looks good as well. So the clone stamp tool has a few different properties than the healing brush tool. Both take a bit of time to work with, and once you got the hang of it, it's an amazing tool to have. I actually want to delete this empty layer right away and show you guys another technique when you can actually go and work with on all layers. So what I'll do now is just create a new empty layer. I'll rename this quickly to healing. There we go. And right away, we have a healing layer. So what I'll do now is go back over here, select the healing brush tool, zoom in a bit closer, and now I will also select under the healing brush tool, the layers to all layer, right? So it's now sampling all layers, but I can work on this empty layer. Now I hold Alt, source an area close by, and slowly just brush over here. Again, hold Alt and brush an area nearby. Do this a bit more, and over here. And again, I'll continue on this side, brush over here, brush again a bit more. Okay, and we're going to move up, maybe remove this. And this I would do now for a few hours, obviously fixing the face. But this is not so more about skin retouching. It's more about learning the tool, right? So again, cleaning all of this. Maybe we have an area like here. We'll clean that. Again, have a look how I always source very close by. Okay, like so. And then I'll zoom out again. I quickly want to show you guys just the before and after now. So on this healing brush, we've only worked on this. So if you mess up, you can always delete this layer or erase out of this layer or delete it and start again. So have a look. Here's the before and after, before and after. So we slowly fix the face just with the healing brush tool. You can also do this method, press Command J, duplicate the layer, and work then again, obviously directly on this layer. So it's going to be layer 2. I'll switch this again with the clone stamp tool and the healing brush tool, obviously to current layer, and then work pretty much the same effect. Okay, hold Alt, source close by, and just brush over this. So now you're obviously brushing right away on the second layer and your whole Photoshop file gets bigger again. So the first technique was a bit better. Okay, but it's basically exactly the same effect. So again, like I said a few times in this course, there are many different ways in Photoshop with workflow techniques. Some people work like this. Some people work like I showed before, just with an extra layer. Okay, let's zoom out again. And again, we have the same before and after result, but on a separate layer. That's totally up to you and how you would wish to work with your workflow. All right, let's head over now to the next lesson. In the following lesson, I'll start talking about the crop tool and the slice tool. If we head over to the left-hand side again and select this button over here, we'll get right away to the crop tool. Also, if you hit right-click, again, slice tool and slice select. So right away for a beginner, you will only need the crop tool. The slice tool is a bit confusing, and slide select as well. It's more for designers. But for now, let's start with the crop tool. Right away on our canvas, you'll see we have a few anchor points here in the center and on the sides. And again, if I drag these, it will directly show again a gray area over here, which is again showing how many pixels you delete. And also over here, shows again how many pixels I'll delete. Then at the top, I can just accept this, and right away my whole canvas has been cropped, also with the ratio. Now I'm going to go a step back again in the history panel, just to the full mode. I'll zoom out slightly with this, and first of all go back to the crop tool. Right away at the top you can also see that our application menu changed again. Photoshop gives you here a few options, a few ratio presets that you can select right away in order to frame something up. Then also you have a custom mode over here. You can change it with the numbers here, width and height, and then you can hit clear and it clears out. Let's actually unaccept this. Then also straighten works a little bit like a spirit level. Again, if you want to change your picture like this, it will rotate into that direction and you'll crop right away like that. Great. Then next tool, also rule of thirds. Again, you can have a different visibility here. Either you want grid or you want a golden ratio, whatever is up to you. I normally work with rule of thirds for the beginning. Then at the bottom, we also have auto show, always show overlay, or again, never show. So that's basically, you'll never have these guidelines. I always keep it to overshow. Then we have a little settings button here. You have the use the classic mode, just with the old blocks here, the anchor points. I sticked actually with just the new area. And then I show crop area, auto center preview is ticked, and enable crop. And then the opacity down here, so obviously when you drag down, this is the 75 opacity. That's to just show you are deleting these pixels. Okay, let's go a step back and delete crop pixels. Yes, so it's always delete and you do not have that anymore in the file. Then again, a undo button, the cancel and the accept button. So let's actually do this once again. We'll just crop it once like this. You can either now on the keyboard hit enter or again select this button at the top. I'm going to hit enter and right away you see we have cropped this whole canvas here to a new ratio. Let's go a step back and also quickly show the selected tool here, the slice tool. Again, slice tool, very confusing in the beginning. It's kind of making small slices here. Let's do this again from an anchor point over here. If you're building collages, this can be really handy. For instance, this could be your first help guideline here. And if you just hold and click, create a second guideline and you see it snaps really nicely to these guidelines. So then you could actually duplicate this layer again. Let's move that onto the new layer icon. Move this and delete it again and take this layer and get into the transform mode, which I will still discuss later in the course. And we can easily move it in here and right away you guys can see that it clips right away to these areas here. Also, we can narrow this a little bit until it fits this. So it's a nice tool to create some really cool collages and also having guidelines right away in your whole canvas. Again, select the slice tool over here and hit right click here in the top and you can just say again, delete the slice. Then obviously everything is out and you're just left with this one layer. I'm going to hit delete now again and just remove this. Not so important to know for beginners. For you, it's more important to understand the crop tool for now. Let's rather head over now to the next tool, which will be again the eyedropper tool, color sample, and red eye tool, which is good tools to know for beginners. In the following lesson, we'll start discussing the brush tool and pencil tool. Your most important tool is, I guess, the brush tool. All right, let's select the brush tool. Right away, you see the option menu changes again. And right at the front here, we already have, again, size and hardness and a few presets here from the brush. Again, I'm going to stick just with the third one and show you guys in a moment the brush presets as well, which are right over here. Let's actually just move our canvas a bit to the side. And you guys get to see the brush here already. More about that in a minute. Let's also talk about this. These are again blending options, different blending options to work with while you're working in the brush, so it only affects the brush right now, not the whole layer. Then as well, the opacity of the brush. Again, something here for airbrush too, and this one too, working with airbrush, but this is not so important for you right now. And the flow over here also to just change the hardness a bit. And then also pen pressure sensitivity here. If you don't work with a Wacom Intuos 5 Pro tablet, then this is also not too important. Once you start working with this, then you have to have a consistent pen pressure or not. But more about that in the Wacom class. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. And let's also get over here to just our brush preset. So first of all, under the brush, I would right away go here to brush preset. It's pretty much the same like this. Just select brush preset. And now under the brush preset, you can right away see what these different brushes do. So when you have a hard select, just like so, when I paint now, it will just be very hard. If I have this selected, I can also then paint hard and smooth again. But this has something to do with pen pressure sensitivity again. Also over here, a very soft feathered brush. And if we select this one, you can be very creative with this. So a few different brushes give you different effects. Okay, so you understand that already. Let's move back to our third one here and also go back to the brush. So over here, you can now tweak the brush tip shape a little bit. Basically meaning you can adjust this. Also over here, you have again another palette. So basically this means over here, you have a few more options where you can change your tip a little bit. So let's go to shape dynamics. And first of all, under the jitter, you can see if I move this, it gets very weird down here. Let's actually go and select a solid brush. Show it to you guys a bit easier. So let's select the shape dynamics, and right away with the jitter, I can create a really old worm. And if I paint now, it will have a very weird effect. The same goes again. Let's just go a step back. I quickly will create a new layer so we can paint a bit more. Okay, so this is what it looks just like this. And I can maybe take the jitter up again. And also I can play here with the angle jitter. And there are a few more options as well. We can go to scattering, basically scatter it like this. If we paint, it will scatter like this. And always remember, it will also use the same color as you have chosen with your foreground color. So say for instance, if we quickly go back, take the eyedropper tool and select here a purple, then we have right away a foreground color with purple. Now we go back to the brush, and if we paint, we'll paint with purple. So just remember that your foreground color is always the color that you will paint with. Again, scattering off, you can go to texture, dual brush, color dynamics. I do not want to go through every single one now. Play a little bit around and test this out, what that certain effect will give you. But I would recommend that you have smoothing on always, because it's just a bit of a finer touch on the brush. All right, so let's go back to brush preset. I'm going to select my third one again and also delete this layer. So this is the brush preset. Okay, what I also wanted to show now is sometimes we also discussed this already. Let's quickly go back here to just our magnetic lasso tool. I'll zoom in a bit. Take again the magnetic lasso tool. And also move around. So basically the magnetic lasso tool is clipping around this area. I'm just doing it very roughly and complete. So right away we have created a selection, right? So now we have a selection, and if we select now the brush tool and paint over here, it's not going to paint. It will only paint inside of the selection. So have a look, if I paint over this, right away it will paint inside of that selection. Let's go a step back in the history panel. And again, if I'll select now the marking tool and click inside of the selection here, I can say select inverse. Like you guys know most probably now already. Now the outside will be selected. So whatever is selected, the brush will be active in. So let's go back to the brush. And if I paint in here, you'll see it will paint. But once I go over the little glasses here, it will not paint in there because obviously the selection surrounds this. Again, let's press Command Z, get a step back, and press Command D in order to get out of the selection again. So a super easy way to work with the brush in selections and on its own. And now remember again, we talked about this in the layering system. Say for instance, if we duplicate this layer again, and over here we have a mask, and now we want to brush with the mask, or we want to mask something out, we first of all go in and create a selection. So say for instance, this time I'll just take the elliptic and marking tool, I'll make a quick round selection, I can move that around, and this area needs to be masked out. Then again, I'll take with Be My Brush, I'll select the right preset here, so basically brush number 3, and again I'll go back to brush, my shape dynamics are all good, smoothing is on, and I also like the sharp edges. Okay, and then I'll literally go over here now and paint, but again nothing is happening. Why? Because we're already again painting with a white foreground color on a white layer. Remember, we needed to have a black background layer in order to hide. Obviously I'll turn this layer off. And now when I paint, you will right away see that we have a transparent background again from Photoshop. So everything that has been hidden now has been happened through the brush. So you can use the brush as well to paint and to work on your images. Again, you want to brush that back in, or you want to do it freehand, and you can also do so now. As well, you guys can see the brush is currently feathered. So let's change that. Press Ctrl Alt together, move left and right. We'll first change the diameter and then up and down to change the hardness. Now again, I just want to remove the white frame from the glasses. So I'll slowly paint over here and with my edge slowly go around. So it's kind of like a drawing. You can remove things here, but it's currently on a mask. Just remember that. If I switch with X again, it obviously means white. So we're revealing again, and you can brush again things back in. And the same goes for again working just on a normal layer if you want to work with paint or brush something in. Say for instance, I wanted to just quickly brush in something here on the hair. And I'll go back and select with my eyedropper tool, just the color. Okay, I'm working on a mask. That's why it's just selecting white everywhere. So maybe let's press delete here, right click, delete layer mask, select layer number 1. Okay, purple over here. I'll select the brush. This time I'm also going to change the opacity, say like a 40% or so. For this, another shortcut here, you can also press the numbers on the keyboard. So if you press 4, it right away switches to 40%. Let's say for instance 2, 20%. Let's say for instance 8, we'll set it up to 80%. But for now, I just want to work with 20% and show you guys again another effect. B for the brush, Control Alt together, move left and right, change your diameter a little bit, or up and down the hardness again. One more small trick here, if you don't want to press Control and Alt together and move left and right, you can also use the opening brackets in order to make your brush a bit smaller, or again the closing brackets again to make it bigger. Again, a few keyboard shortcuts here. Now I've selected the purple color, again 20% opacity on the same layer, and I'm literally just brushing on here to give this a bit more of an effect. Not the right way to do it, but just showing you guys some people also do this, or one can also do this obviously with a brush. Again, I would do this on a mask because you're brushing over the yellow as well. But just showing you guys again what you could do with the brush. Okay, so let's delete this layer, switch on our first layer, and also go back here to the pen tool. So again, the pen tool works pretty much the same like the brush tool, just this time you'll have a few different presets. So I won't show the whole pen tool, it's pretty much the same techniques, just you have to set also your brush here, and then you'll set all your tip shapes here, and once you're ready, you can now also paint with this. Let's zoom in a little bit closer, so you guys can see it a bit better, and right away I have the pen tool here selected, and I can now draw with this and create lines and certain things. For retouching purposes, we do not use this so much. Maybe for design a little bit. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit again. And I will also go back here in my history panel to delete layer. So we have a clean canvas again. Okay, so that's basically it for the brush and also for the pencil tool.